feel like I did that so much better this week, Tyler. I feel
No,
good about
actually,
that.
it was smooth. The sound was one sound, one track playing. Perfect. It was perfect.
And I didn't have to like switch on and off and see if I knew what I was doing because like I listened back to last week's. So I was like, oh crap, that was terrible. But slowly but surely, we're out here doing our thing. Welcome to Roads to Blake Street Banter, where one of us knows what the word banter means and the other two are just along for the ride. I hope you caught on to that. We are 3 deep today. Tyler, say what's up.
Hey, what is up?
And in my own words, not Luke's, we are joined by Twitter legend, Oak Tree status, Luke. What up, big dog?
Hey, how's it going? I think the bar for legend in Rocky's Twitter is low. It's low. It's a low bar. But thank you. Yeah.
I mean, if you were competing in that Christmas time Rocky's Twitter tournament a few times and you're making songs out on the range, that was my first experience with you. I was like, okay. This guy's a fun time. I get it. And that was really my first time like in Rocky's Twitter, even with this Blake Street Banter stuff. And that was fun. And I was like, all right, he gets it. He's funny. All right, it's gonna be fun. So Rocky's legend, like you said, loosely used, but it's fun. It's fun out here. And thank you for joining us. I'm super stoked to have you because you are kind of you're a guru in your own way, right? You like to look at stats. You have your own measures.
That's what it's all about, right? You just regurgitate your opinions out into the open forum. Everybody needs to hear what I think. So yes. In fact, my brother, every now and then, if you ever have interacted with him on Twitter, he kind of gives me a hard time. He does the Mariners thing. The Trident deck is my brother, if you're familiar with that. Okay. And Shane's always telling me, he's like, man, 50% of your tweets are just numbers. He's like, I just have to mute you because of all the numbers. You're just throwing numbers out there.
That's how you know you're a stat head. You're good.
That's right. Yeah.
Like I just don't think he likes that the numbers support a trade of German Marquez for Julio Rodriguez.
That's right.
The numbers support it. He doesn't like it.
Absolutely. That's what it is. Julio's not been as good this year. They should have pulled the trigger on that 2 years ago when I told them to, right?
I don't think the trade could go through anymore. The Rockies would hang up.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so that's still on the table. It's still trade season, so we'll keep crossing our fingers for that. But one of your things that you're doing this year is your breakout bust dark horse prospect for each team, which is insane work. It's fun to read. It's fun to keep up with. I'm sure you enjoy it on your end. Like, I can go look and see what we're here. But who are your 4 guys in those 4 categories for the Rockies, and how do you feel on a confidence scale for each one of those?
Yeah. Well. Yeah, I did that kind of for my own benefit, as just sort of a baseball nerd, so that I could kind of re-reference that and see the guys I felt good about going into the year. And it's easy to sort of play the game in hindsight and say, oh yeah, I knew that guy was going to be good, or I knew that guy was going to be a bust. But at any rate, my pick for the breakout for the Rockies was Elehuris Montero. How confident am I in that now on a scale of 1 to 10? A 2. And as we have talked about extensively, you guys have talked about on here, and we've talked about it all over Twitter. The problem there is playing time, I think, more than anything else. So Montero is my breakout. My bust pick was Moustakas. I actually said that I picked him to be DFA'd by June. So, traded to the Angels for a 5-year minor leaguer in June. I don't know. I get partial credit, maybe. But my bust was Moustakas. My dark horse was Trejo, thinking with Rogers out, maybe he'd have a chance to entrench himself. That hasn't worked out. But my favorite prospect is Ariel Amador, and I would say feeling good about that. I've seen him shoot up the charts on the rankings, and he's a guy I'm excited about. Obviously, he's a guy a lot of people are excited about, but I've kind of been excited about Amador for a while now.
Yeah, you're big on the on base and the strikeouts and the walks and stuff. Not really on base, but like the walks being up and high and strikeouts being low, and Amador fits that. You were big on Juan Brito a lot too, and kind of like an old traditional ball to bat skills, but he's got some pop with it. Amador is now your new Rockies number 1 top 30 prospect according to MLB.com. which is good and bad. I never know how to take those. I mean, the rankings, they go up and down all the time, but I mean, let's segue into it, right? Zach Veen officially out for the season. We had a whole thing to talk about it, so we'll give a little small little bit about our Veen conversation. But we just learned that he had wrist surgery. He battled that in early April, mid-April, came back after a few weeks, absolutely tore the cover off the ball for about 2 weeks, and then kind of settled back down into what we've been seeing, his like 650, 700 OBP, just kind of making its way through. No power, no pop really since that. And then we come to find out he has wrist surgery, is posted on his IG, nothing from the Rockies, which is a whole nother conversation. But let's take the injury out of it. Let's go back to a week ago when we were all talking about, let's do a Veen segment. Because Tyler, you and I were talking about that last week on the pod. Next week, let's do a Veen segment, see what we're doing, what we're worried about. You two just being smart dudes and smart guys. Like, if that was a healthy Zach Veen, it's like 500 plate appearances so far in AA. How would we be feeling that? Tyler, you can start off with us. Like, how would we be feeling about the future of the Rockies corner outfield with Zach Veen, knowing like what we knew a week ago?
I think we'd be feeling some Jordan Beck and some Yanquiel Fernandez. It's sort of where things turned. Like, for 2 years since he was drafted in 2020, it was like, that's going to be the face of the franchise. Like, it was kind of written in the stars already. And yeah, it was a 564 OPS and 342 plate appearances in AA. I know Luke has tweeted about it a lot. You have a big sample there to look at that is pretty scary. But fortunately, we don't know exactly the history of that injury. It sounds like it was sort of a factor in the fall last year. But obviously he killed the fall league. So I'm not entirely clear on that timeline and the effects of that. But AA was, giving him some fits to say the least.
Right. And you kind of expect those fits to be there at the end of last year, just being 20 years old, moving up to AA late season. That was expected. And then he has that breakout all-star Arizona Fall League, 89 OPS, only 8 strikeouts, 15 walks, was just absolutely insane. I think he won like a defensive thing or a hitter thing for the Arizona Fall League. We should do a little bit better on that. Like, he was there. He was good. And then we got so excited. Talks of him being a Rocky at the end of the season were high amongst people, experts, Rockies talking heads. And then he came out kind of doing the same thing. What point, Luke, how many plate appearances, like a true sample size at a level, do you kind of like start taking, all right, this is who he is, this is who he's going to be? Like, what are your thought process on that?
Yeah, actually, I keep my own personal spreadsheet, and I track 3 things, and you've kind of nailed them. I track the walk rate. I want to see how often they're walking. I track their K rate. I want to see how often they're striking out, and I track their isolated power. I like it better than slugging because it doesn't take batting average into play. It kind of shows me a guy's pop. And you don't have to be good at all 3 of those, but in some sort of ratio, if that K rate's up, then we need to see more power, like we do, for example, with Nolan Jones. Who right now is killing it and making all my predictions on him look
Absolutely
bad.
Love it. Yep.
Veen is a guy who the K rate is kind of as high as I wanted to see it coming into AA. Excuse me. I didn't want to see it rise a whole lot, especially because kind of the calling card on Veen coming into the draft was sort of precocious power, right? Early power, and it was okay. The power was okay. It wasn't great. So all that said, man, I was pretty close to mashing that panic button on him. It was not good. If what we've seen on Veen in AA is Veen, it's bad. And I mean, I think sometimes where we don't appreciate some of those numbers, I think we're talking, Tyler, you just said, what did you say? A 5-something OPS?
564.
560. I mean, that's German Marquez at the plate bad, or good if you're a pitcher. It's bad. And I don't think, I mean, if it had been like a 700 OPS or even like a 690, we'd say like, that's not good. It needs some, but man, we're talking in the mid 500s. It's bad. The one thing we did see, and now it kind of makes sense, is the speed numbers, right? I mean, stolen base is like crazy. That was true in the spring. It was true in Arizona. All of a sudden, this guy who we had talked about as a power guy coming out of the draft, now all of a sudden, man, wow, this guy could be a 40 stolen base threat. Well, now it makes sense, right? I mean, if your power tool is damaged, you exploit what you got, which is his legs, you know? So, yeah, I mean, for me, the 200 plate appearance is kind of my line where I start to say, man, this is a big enough sample size to say something's going on here. It's not a fluke anymore, and it doesn't look good.
Yeah, like if you look back at his numbers over these last 28 days, like 7 days prior on Baseball References and showing up, it's 180 batting average, 268 OBP, 200 slugging. So like, I wonder if he finally hit the threshold of pain tolerance and like, I can't do this anymore, because he had 9 hits out of 50 at bats and just 1 double in that time. It's just, you have all of that going to it, and you start getting worried at a certain level, and you're Zach Veen, man. Like, you're the number one, you're the first round pick, number 9 overall. You are number 1 prospect for the Rockies. You have all of these things coming in to you as a 20-year-old that you've never been able to process before. And like, yo, you're the next thing, and you have a chance of being a big league guy this year. Go do you. All right, I'm going to go do me. But then at what point, like, it's hard. Like, I'm on the wrong side of 30, trying to figure out what my threshold of pain tolerance and athletic ability and any kind of other tolerance out there. And I'm like, I keep going, I keep getting this. That's without all the pressure. Like, my wife doesn't care if I'm good at pickleball or not. Like, but I'm still going out there. I'm trying to be good at it, let alone an entire franchise, an entire community coming in on you, like, with all that pressure on it. And so that kind of leads into the next piece. Like, are we mad at Zach Veen for hiding this? I mean, I think this is just being an athlete. Like, we saw it with Noah Davis. He kind of hid his injury in his 3rd start before he went on the IL. Doesn't quite seem back to form and all of that. But like, these players, we hear it all the time. They're fighting through injury to try to get to that next level. At what point do we get mad at them for like, yo, like, it's okay to take a step back? Or like, I really appreciate him trying to go out there and do that thing. Like, what's our level on that?
Yeah, can I jump in? This is a rare thing you're about to experience. I'm going to be super optimistic.
Okay.
Yeah, see, I know. I'm normally a lot of the stuff I say, it feels pessimistic. I like to say realistic. I'm regurgitating stats. Here's my optimism on Veen. His strikeout rate is lower this year than it has ever been so far as a minor leaguer. His walk rate is borderline elite this year.
Yep.
His numbers are bad because his power is bad. I mean, period. That's what's wrong. There's no juice at all. His isolated slugging is underneath 100. I think it's a 0.99 or something like that this year. It was even worse in AA last year. My threshold is a 180 is kind of what I'm looking for, is at least somewhere around there. And especially for a guy who, again, like, one of the things coming in is that we were excited about power potential, and it's just not been there. So here's my super optimistic take. I'm wondering if this injury in the long term actually makes Veen a better hitter. I think in the short term, what that's done to him is it's made him be more selective. If you can't, pull those pitches with some power and authority that you used to be able to, you wait for a pitch that you're feeling more comfortable hitting. And so super optimistically, I'm hoping that this actually maybe in the long term makes Veen a more complete hitter. His selectivity at the plate, I think, has improved this year. I think by necessity, because he couldn't hit with authority some of those pitches that maybe weren't great hitters' pitches before, if that makes any sense. So, yeah, I mean, in such a weird way, I know it's so weird to say, but I was seeing that picture on Instagram of Veen's injury, and I was saying, hallelujah, I'm so glad to see he's hurt. And as far as playing through an injury, I mean, if anybody's responsible for that, that's the training staff, right? I mean, that's where you hope that a training staff would pull a kid aside and say, man, something's obviously off. The nature of the injury, as I've heard it described, though, is it sounds like, again, super optimistic. Maybe this has been something that's been in the works even before he realized it. I mean, I think Thomas Harding called it a fraying. It sounds, and furthermore, I'll even say this. I'm wondering if what we saw in Arizona and if what we saw for that 2-week window was a product of giving it rest. I mean, both of those times he had an extensive layoff, either because the AA season had ended before the Arizona Fall League. And with that rest, I think he was probably feeling better coming into it. We saw him hitting better. It's the day-to-day that's been wearing him out. And that's, I think, ultimately why he needed that surgery. But again, I think there's some reasons to say optimistically, maybe we haven't seen healthy Bean for a year, like truly healthy Bean for a year and a half.
Yeah, I like those takes. Go, Tyler.
We've seen so many clips, and I mean, even early in his minor league career, he was kind of figuring out the ropes, but he's still hitting double-digit home runs those first 2 years, and we saw like a lot of clips of insane power where he has this perfectly loopy swing that elevates the ball. He's probably hitting some at 110. Like, we know the potential is there for him to be a big-time power threat, and so like you're saying, Luke, there's a chance he became a polished hitter with this. And you've seen some sources like Fangraphs, they toss a 45 hit tool on him. I think they have to update their tools, because he looks like almost a power over or a hit over power guy right now. He's at least a 50 hitter at this point, and we know the power is there. So if he is able to put this all together, there's a huge silver lining to be had with him missing, up to like 6-8 months.
Yeah, and I really like that idea that it long term it helps. I mean, like Thomas Hardy, kind of what you were saying here. He's gone. Hopefully, he comes back. Thomas Harding said he had 12 home runs through July 12th with Spokane Indians. Since that moment, he's only had one with Spokane and the Yard Goats. So,
yeah,
in that whole calendar year, it's kind of been around that time. So you can definitely tell that top hand is hurting him. So I think it's good. And being able to adjust and still being a baseball player while getting out there and doing your thing is good. I'm all on board with he's good with the rest. So let's rest it, see what's happening. Let's see what winter ball might possibly bring, and see if we can get him out there and get him some more reps with that healthy wrist injury. So Zach Veen, just kind of a good injury. It explains some things, is kind of what we need to hear, and it kind of calms the nerves a little bit about, all right, this isn't who he is. There's still some more to this guy, still some more hope that we can start seeing going forward. So, Zach Veen, anything else for the good of the Coliseum? No? All right, let's get it.
Best wishes to him. That's
right. Definitely quick recovery. All right, Tyler, hit us with your hitter of the week across the Rockies minor league.
Yeah, so we've got ourselves a current Rocky. Won't say more than that. Current Rocky, Mike Toglia. He was called up. He had a nice little stretch in AAA with 2 homers, 4 walks, 2 strikeouts in it, and an OPS at 1,088. That led into his call-up. It's good to see him finding some rhythm. That's just not something we've seen from him. I mean, definitely haven't seen it that much this year, even in a super hitter-friendly environment. We haven't really seen Mike Toglia like mashing since the lower minors. Like, it's been a bit of a drought since he has really looked good and comfortable. So this could be a nice momentum builder for him. Someone that I don't think he's going to have his leash cut too short anytime soon. He's a first-round pick. This organization loves their first-round picks. So we kind of need to hope for the best. Otherwise, it's going to be a couple more years of Toglia struggling with the Rockies.
Right. Go all in. Does the Moose move? We'll get into that a little later. Does the Moose move open up time for Toglia? Or do we see more Montero? How does this whole thing play out, especially with the guys coming back from injuries, all that kind of stuff? But he's hot right now. I love that. Good pick. I'm going to go with Jordan Beck. 9 RBIs up in Spokane, 1 double, 2 home runs. Yankiel Fernandez left, but Jordan Beck said, "Yo, we still got some power out here up in Vista Stadium." So 1 double, 2 home runs, 9 RBIs. Cool thing. 6 walks to those 7 strikeouts, and he's still fast, y'all. 2 stolen bases. It's only got to be a matter of time before he gets called up, and I feel like I've been saying that for the last 6 weeks, but only a matter of time before Hartford gets another outfielder to join Yankiel and Vladimir Restituyo. Even though Neko Decolati has been kind of on fire up in Hartford this year. Luke, who's your hitter?
Yeah, I want to go with Dean Jorge. Jorge was he's one of these guys when he was signed out of Cuba. In fact, just a little background. I don't know the last time you guys talked about Jorge. I'm sure you have. Signed out of Cuba. He was ready to be signed as a 16-year-old, and then the COVID stuff happened, and it really kind of delayed his clock. And so for that reason, he's still in the complex league. He's down in Arizona. Played in the summer league last year. Now in the complex league. I don't know what we're waiting on to get him to Fresno, but this is Jorge's line from last week. 625 batting average, 750 on base, and a 1.125 slugging, an OPS of 1875. That's ridiculous. That's also complex numbers. And but what I really like to see here, 8 walks to 3 strikeouts. He did hit a homer in that. He also stole 3 bases. So Dean Jorge is my hitter of the week, and I'm ready to see him in a minor league uniform.
Yeah, I'm not sure when we saw any ACL guys come up last year. I think it might have been when the college guys came in. We started seeing it in August, September. There's a few names that should be pushed up quickly, and Jorge is definitely one of them. I mean, Alberto Pacheco was called up a few weeks ago. Granted, he's a starter and all that. He's a pitcher. You need the arms, but we should be able to see that soon. Tyler, who's your, speaking kind of in that same realm, right? Look at the segue, man. Who's your pitcher of the week?
I gotta go to Gabriel Barbosa because he was just kind of lights out. He went 5 shutout innings with 9 strikeouts, just 3 hits, no walks on the day for him. He's 21 years old, hanging out in Fresno. So Fresno has themselves a nice little crop of guys. I almost went to Alberto Pacheco, who you mentioned. He also went 7 innings. They weren't shut out, but he only allowed 5 base runners, 8 Ks. He's 20 years old. So they've got these 2 guys in Fresno, pretty young for the level. Both are pitching well. They're not, killing it down there, but this was a really good week for both of them. So you would hope there's some momentum to be built on these 2 young. You got Pacheco out of the Dominican Republic, and then Gabriel Barbosa out of Brazil, which is, I always love. There's only a few players that really have come out of Brazil in recent years, so it's always fun to see that. Hoping those 2 can be some of those next international pitching prospects. There's always been a few for the Rockies that shine through, and with Victor Juarez kind of struggling this year, it'd be cool if someone was able to kind of take some influence in the organization.
Yeah, Jordy Vargas adding that young international talent to that list too. I don't know. Jordy Vargas' line's weird. I don't know enough to comment on it, but he only went 1.2 innings, but only gave up 3 hits and a walk. So not sure what that was about this week with Jordy. So hopefully he's all right. But there is some young international talent. My guy, I almost went another guy. We'll see if Luke mentions him. If not, I'll bring him up. But Dugan Darnell, he finally gets to pitch. He hasn't pitched for 11 days before that because Hartford just hadn't had any high leverage situations to bring in Double D. Happy birthday, big dog. Today's his birthday. But 2 innings pitched, 2 wins, 3 strikeouts in that time, 1 hit, 0 runs, 0 walks, and just 7 batters faced. So he got those outs quickly and efficiently. It's just, I can only imagine as a relief pitcher, like your whole every day, you never know when you're going to get in, and then you go 11 straight days of not getting in, and then all of a sudden you're in these tie games, like close games, enough to keep the score literally at zeros to have the team come to get some walk-offs. So yeah, there's 2 walk-offs this past week for Hartford, and Dugan Darnell was part of both of those. So that's my guy. Shout out Double D.
Yeah, Darnell's the guy I looked at. Pacheco, we've talked about Pacheco with the 7-inning, 8K performance. Man, I love seeing the strikeouts on the major league level. That's my biggest complaint about the current Rockies staff is they are just not built for strikeouts, and I sure wish they were. So I like seeing those things coming up. Nick Garcia at AA had a great start this week. Went 6 innings with 5 strikeouts, 2 walks, and a hit. So he's my guy, Nick Garcia, in Hartford this week. Had a nice start. And the other thing I look, you look for a few walks. So, 1 hit, 2 walk performance over 6 innings. That's strong. I also want to throw one out there, though. This is kind of wild. Felix Ramirez in Fresno.
Yeah.
He's a
Huge Felix Ramirez fan.
Some love every now and then. Felix Ramirez has not allowed an earned run since May 11th, and he's had 22 innings pitched in that frame. He got a hold and a save this week, and that's kind of been the going thing for him. Good strikeout rate over that same frame, too. So old for the level, 23 years old. But I'm talking about a guy who's lanky and lean, 6'4", 170 or so, and can throw hard. So he's a guy I'd like to see move up a little bit and could be a future middle relief guy.
Yeah. Love that Felix Ramirez pick. He's been lights out all year. And it's, again, curious. I don't know when the Rockies are making these moves, but there's so many. You can pick 2 or 3, at least 5 or 6 on the Spokane Indians that should be getting calls all the way up. So speaking that, I like the Nick Garcia, but Gabriel Hughes went 7 innings, 7 strikeouts.
Yeah.
He had some traffic, 8 total runners between hits and walks, but only allowed 3 of them to score. And that was most of that damage was done in the first and second inning. After that, he settled in for those last 5 innings and looked really, really good. And again, he has that Kyle Freeland dog mentality up on the mound. It's fun to watch. If you can watch a Gabe Hughes start, actually get in there. He's that guy, and he puts everything out there with it. So huge shout out to Gabe Hughes there. Just real quick numbers that I put out there just to kind of recap. Cole Tucker, future Rocky. I don't know if that would hit the Immaculate Grid on there. Former Pirate. I guess, no, we did Tigers on the Immaculate Grid, didn't you? Cole Tucker, 11 hits, only 1 extra base hit, but 300, 350 batting average, has been playing second and center. He might be knocking on that door with Aaron Schunk, who is MIA in the sense he hasn't played the last 3 or 4 games. He could either be fly fishing or he could be kind of handling an injury. Not sure what's going on with Aaron Schunk there, but Cole Tucker might be next on that up list. Grant Levine, huge Grant Levine fan, and kind of want to get your thoughts on Luke from you, Luke. 2 doubles, 5 walks, 4 strikeouts, and 938 OPS. Dude, man's just quietly just putting a solid season together. He's not hitting crazy home run numbers like Hunter Goodman. His doubles are right up there, double-digit doubles, but his walks, dude, man's walking 2 or 3 times a game, it seems like. Just very selective, fantastic guy. If you can watch this guy taking at bat also, you're surprised why he's not swinging at some of these. But as a first base crop, you got Hunter Goodman, Michael Tolio, Larry Montero, and Grant Levine. Where are you kind of putting Levine on your future Rocky list, Luke?
Yeah, so for what I hope, Levine's at the top of the list. I love his game. That's a cliche, but walks don't slump. This year so far, in 277 plate appearances at AA, 17% walk rate. I mean, that's elite. I love a guy who can get on base like that. The problem with Levine, from an organizational standpoint, is the lack of power. And you're talking about a guy who plays a position that you want to see power from at first base. But of those 3 categories I named before, you got walk rate, strikeout rate. His walk rate's elite. His strikeout rate is good. The isolated power's getting better, and he's doing it in probably the hardest level to hit for power for Colorado, right? I mean, Fresno and Spokane and Albuquerque, a lot of times you see some elevated power numbers at those places. Hartford's tough. The Eastern League is one of the tougher places to hit for pop. I'm not worried about it. I would love to see Levine pushed along. I think that if he keeps doing what he's doing, you put him in Albuquerque, I think he could put up some ridiculous-looking numbers in Albuquerque where that will inflate that power. I like Levine on top of that list. Personally, I want to see Montero number 2. Tolia, I don't have a lot of faith in, quite honestly. Tolia's strikeout rate to me is prohibitive. It's just going to cause – you can't strike out a third of the time in the major leagues and expect to be a productive player. And there's so few players that have done it, and you're talking about guys like Joey Gallo who walk just at an obscene rate and also have monster power. There's just not many guys who can pull that off.
Yeah, it's very hard to do that. And I keep going back and forth on how I feel about strikeouts, and I think you kind of put it nicely. Just the chances go up if you're putting the ball in play, and if you're not putting the ball in play, the law of averages across a full season don't really work itself out. And it's like, all right, that's actually a very smart way to put that. Because I mean, an out is an out, so like, what does it matter if you're producing in the other ones? But you have more chances to produce if you're putting the ball in the bat. Going back to foundational little league stuff there.
Yeah, and you know, I've tweeted this stuff, and I know I sound like a big naysayer, but let's just grab Nolan Jones for a minute. Nolan Jones is striking out in the third of his major league plate appearances. So far, nobody's cared. The batting average on balls in play is why nobody's cared. It's been around 500, which is absurd. His batting average on balls in play right now is 448. And again, just for context, for everybody who wants to say, well, maybe he can keep a good batting average on balls in play. Maybe he strikes the ball so hard that, you know, the average on balls in play is higher. And I think it will be. I think he will be a higher BABIP guy because of how hard he hits the ball. The problem is you go back to 100 years and the highest career BABIP in Major League history is like a 370. Which, by the way, I don't know if you saw this. The owner of that high BABIP for the career right now is Jorge Alfaro, of all people. Jorge Alfaro had a 371 BABIP for his career, which is wild. So all that to say, there's no way you can maintain this. So once that batting average on balls in play, I mean, right now, Nolan Jones is hitting 316 thanks to that high average on balls in play. Once that regulates, and it will to some degree, I don't know what level, but I think it's safe to say probably lower than the all-time best. When that happens, you're talking about a guy whose batting average is probably going to be in the 240s, and you know that's doable. It's workable if he keeps on walking and if he keeps on mashing. If the contact that he makes.
Contact that he makes. Yep. All right. Get yourself situated. But like, yeah, the BABIP thing is huge, and being able to hit it hard is good. But doing that across 162, looking at 100 games for Nolan, it's going to be very difficult to do. And being able to do that constantly, it's not done. It hasn't been done. So to think otherwise, especially for Colorado Rocky, to do that with the Coors hangover, this and that, is going to be incredibly difficult doing it. How are you feeling about Drew Romo, Tyler? So we've seen this nice 2 or 3 weeks skid that he's had, hot streak going on, not skid. He can only play 3 games this week, 10 at-bats, 2 hits, but his OPS has been going up. How we kind of feeling? I know we keep talking about him each week, but I think he's somebody we need to talk about as the future of the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah, I mean, he's just finding his footing. He was actually without footing for the first 2 months of the season almost. It was just a lot of offers, and if he was getting hits, it was a lot of singles. We've now seen him, he's got a couple home runs in the last 2 weeks. He's got a few doubles. Things are starting to come around for him. A couple more walks. His walk rate had really, really dipped down, but in the last couple of weeks, he started to work a lot more walks as well. And the bar for him offensively is not that high. He needs to OPS, and OPS in the minors is going to be a lot different than the majors. If you're OPSing at 700 in the minors, chances are you're going to have somewhere below that in the 600s in the majors. If he can OPS 700 in the majors, which he has a bit of a ways to climb with that, but if his OPS is 700 in the majors, there's a chance for a really solid catcher still, a great defensive player, and 700 OPS for a catcher is not bad. You can find plenty of defensive-minded guys who their OPS is in the high 5s to the mid 600s. So if he can hit high 600s and then into those low 700s, he's going to be a really solid player. And so he struggled a lot this year. Again, things are starting to come around. There doesn't need to be a ton more progress for him to be back on at least stable ground. Yeah. Still figuring that out. But I think that we do need to keep expectations in check. He's never really he has one above average season in the minors so far. Of course, he's only played 3, but last season overall numbers below average and just clipped above that in 2021. So if we can get him close to average offensively, he's going to be a fantastic player. And I'm someone who's been a little hard on him, and expectations, I think, have to come back to reality just a little bit with Drew Romo.
Expectations are so hard. Like, you hear top prospect, future Colorado Rocky catcher of the future, and like you put all this pressure on these kids to do that, and it's like, but he's just a normal guy right now. There's very few dudes that are Ellie Dilly Cruz, and we'll see how long this fire that he's been putting out there lasts. Like, he's gonna come down, he's gonna regress, like he's gonna have his woes, but the pressure on these, like, this expectations always need to be kept in reality, which is very hard to do, especially as people that love prospects, and then you see the product that is the Colorado Rockies on the big league team. You want these expectations to be high and have these expectations to be met, but it's hard. You got to keep it in check. You got to keep yourself in check, thinking about these players being players and dudes. Quick, I found this really cool. So Riley Pint pitched 6 innings. He had 7 strikeouts. I'm sorry. Riley Pint had 2 innings pitched. He had 7 strikeouts.
That's a very Riley Pint stat.
Right? Yeah. 6 earned runs in that, which is rough. But the 7 strikeouts in 2 innings is cool. That was sweet. Evan Justice did not walk anybody this week, which is huge. 3.1 innings pitched, only 5 strikeouts. Something that he's been struggling since his call-up has been that walk rate. Stephen Jones continues to actually, he had a rough week this week. He had a bad outing the other night. Joe Rock did pretty well in his 5 innings coming back. He's now on the developmental list, which I thought was interesting. Him and Case Williams. Might get into that a little bit later. Blake Adams, 0 earned runs, 6 hits, 7 strikeouts. Colton Schmidt. He's a name that we might need to talk about next week, Tyler. Coming back from Tommy John, had 2 starts, has been good in each one of them. And then our boy Jared Candy had another quality start. 7 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 4 strikeouts. If you missed it, go back to last week. We had our Jared Candy banter session drop. I'm going to do some promoting, and a blog should be posted up tomorrow, Wednesday, for it. But Jared Candy, he's a dog. I can see him knocking on the Hartford Yard Goats starting pitching door here soon. Do you either one chime in? Who's the next starting pitcher from Spokane to get called up to Hartford? Is it Jaden Hill, Victor Juarez, Blake Adams, Jared Candy? Who are you looking at?
I think it's got to be Candy. You went through all those guys, and most of them have had their share of struggles this season. It really has only been Candy who, like, week in, week out, is like consistent, reliable. You name it. Victor Juarez, a 6.32 ERA. It could be Carson Palmquist though too. He's running a really, really high strikeout rate, very consistent. But yeah, when you look at the other guys like Jaden Hill, he's staying the year in Spokane unless he really hits a nice corner and builds momentum. Brian Castillo has really struggled. Jared Candy is like the bright spot, lowest starter ERA on the team.
Yeah.
It's been pretty fantastic. He's not going to be a super high K guy, but enough Ks. He limits the walks. Just a polished pitcher all around. He's got an arsenal of 4 pitches. He commands them well. He is a big time starting pitching prospect at this point. He's someone who should get some top 30 recognition. It's been 2 years of really good performance in full season minor league ball.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think Candy's the pick for the same reason. You said best ERA of a starter. Also the best whip, right? Limiting walks, limiting hits. In fact, just looking at it, what surprised me to see is that actually the home run rate and the walk rate are not that different between Candy and Victor Juarez. The difference is that hits per 9 is Juarez is getting lit up a little bit, whereas Candy is not. But you mentioned Palmquist. I got to see Palmquist live. That was fun.
Oh, nice.
I need to find a way to get to a few more of these games for Spokane. I'm probably about 8 hours from Spokane, but I can catch them in the Tri-Cities, which is about 5 hours away. I went over and caught him in Hillsboro the other day. And Palmquist looked good. I was excited to see what he's got. The nice thing about Palmquist is you can afford to have a little higher walk rate like he does because you're striking guys out. I think his K rate's over 13 right now or something like that. So if you put guys on base, if you can erase them at the dish and they don't put the ball in play, then you can get away with that. So no, Candy, I think, probably deserves the promotion first. I'm more optimistic about both Juarez and Palmquist because of that K rate, but we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, it's the Palmquist 7 strikeouts in his 4 innings this week, and Jared Candy is just a fun story. He's definitely one of our guys going JUCO to D2 to top of the high A team starting rotation with names that we just dropped. So huge shout out to Jared Candy, the Candy Man. And then let's get into it. Yankiel Fernandez got the call up. He had his first week of AA. Was it good? I mean, he had his 2 dongs. I think he might have thrown in a double in there. But Dude Man also had 10 strikeouts. I think this is exactly what we kind of expected from him. We were trying to talk about it last week, what to expect. What do we need from Yankiel to have a successful AA season? And it was limiting the strikeouts and continue to hit for power was kind of what Tyler was alluding to. And correct me if I'm wrong, Tyler. But Yankiel Fernandez is a yard goat. Overall, how are we feeling about Yankiel in his first week as a GOAT and then going forward?
Yeah, wanted to see that strikeout rate. Like he's worked he puts the ball in play a lot. It's a good strikeout rate. I was just worried you're going to see him face the highest level pitching he ever has in his life, and that it's going to kind of spike a little into those mid-20s or higher, and now it'll put a dampener on his production profile. And as you mentioned, 10 strikeouts and 21 plate appearances so far, 47.6 rate. It's a tiny sample, so no reason to really panic about it. But it's one of those things that quickly can become representative of what he's been as a player, or what he on the level. If he has 100 plate appearances and his strikeout rate is still like 30, we got to get a little concerned that there's going to be more Ks than we would have initially expected with the way he performed in low A and high A, where his overall strikeout rate was under 20. So that's been kind of a calling card of his. Not many guys can put up big power numbers and run a low K rate. That's a pretty rare combo to have, and he's someone that could just really carry him through the minors and into the big leagues. So hoping to see that continue. Needs to turn things around after kind of a tricky week.
Yeah, but if you're going to strike out 47% of the time, you better hit some dingers, right? And he did. And so the power translated to AA. Man, love to see that. Like you said, it's a small sample size. For a person who harps on the strikeout rate a lot, I'm not anywhere close to being worried about that. I think, you take a guy, you promote him to the next level higher. He's amped up, and he's wanting to show what he's got. He's trying to prove his worth to that new team. He's swinging from his heels. Even that home run he hit the other day off of that changeup, you could see that swing started early, and he kind of had to clutch it back and make sure that it still came through the zone, and then he smashed it into right field. Yankiel is a guy who I was not as high on until I watched him. When I saw Spokane play against Hillsborough the other day, I know it's cliche and I know everybody says it, but it just sounds different. I mean, when he strikes the ball, it's a rocket. I wish we had exit velocities for his level, because I would have been interested to see. I guarantee you that of the 4 hits I saw him put up in Hillsborough, they were all over 100 miles per hour. And one of them was to opposite field, which you love to see that too. It's not just straight pull pop. The guy can hit bullets. Optimistically, I see him compare sometimes to Yordan Alvarez. Yordan's one of my favorite players. That's not going to happen. I think Rockies fans just need to temper their expectations. He's not going to be Yordan Alvarez, there's no slight in saying he's not going to be one of the 3 best hitters in Major League Baseball. Right. And the reason why is because of the walk rate. Yankiel's never going to be a guy with a great walk rate. That's not in his profile. Yordan is an on-base guy who can also mash. So that's why I think you guys are nailing it. That's why that K rate Tyler mentioned, that's why it is so important. If you're not going to walk a ton, you can't afford to give up a bunch of at-bats. and plate appearances with those strikeouts. So that's what's worth watching. As we keep watching Yankiel in AA, does that K rate start to dip? If I remember right, this is just off the cuff, but he started the season for that little sample in Fresno, and then went up to Spokane and didn't look great, if you remember. And I think some of that just is him getting some traction, and I expect that's what we'll see. I think we'll probably see that K rate settle back down. If he can keep it under 25 with the same kind of power he's been showing, he's going to be just fine.
Yeah. So the threshold's 25 for a guy like this. Is that
that's my magic number? Yeah, that's it. That's it right there for me.
Yeah, I know Tyler's around there somewhere too, but it's huge. And looking at his numbers, he had 6 RBIs, and they weren't all off his home runs. He had, what do you have? A solo shot in the one game, and then he had a 2-run bomb the other. But then he still had 1 RBI and 2 RBIs on back-to-back games there too. So they're not just coming off the homers. They're productive at bats. And dude, man, his first at bat for Hartford was 8-9 pitches. Ended up striking out, but he worked the count, and he looked like he was able to start seeing the ball and cool. So Yankiel Fernandez is now a top MLB.com top 100 list, 97. He's a new face, as they like to say in their blog there. Let's talk about the other two. We've already kind of talked about each one of them. Amador, number 26, number 1 in the Rockies top 30. And then Zach Veen dropped 46 spots from 28 to 74. And then Yankiel Fernandez has joined the ranks. Drew Romo fell off at the beginning of this year. I think there was Benny Montgomery, I think, was in there at one point, or maybe that was BA. How do we feel like the Rockies have their best farm system in a hot minute, right? They've been ranked around the middle 15. We had 4 or 5 at the end of last year in the top 100, and now we're kind of at these 3 with Romo kind of on the cusp there. Overall, with these new numbers, these new rankings coming up, does that give you a sense of hope, or knowing what we knew this time last year is kind of a drag? Like, what does this new ranking kind of make you all feel?
To me, it's confirming what I feel like we've known. There's a few things that none of this surprises me, I guess you could say. Yankiel was a guy I was excited about to a degree last year. Like I said, I got more excited once I saw him actually play. There was 5 guys in Fresno last year that I had high hopes for. Yankiel being one of them, Ariel Amador being the top one of them. We've mentioned him before, but Juan Brito being one of those guys, traded for Nolan Jones. Juan Guerrero, kind of a poor man's Juan Brito, if that makes any sense. He's still intriguing to me. There still seems to be some untapped upside there. And Warming Bernabel, which he's had a rough go this year. There's been some injury issues, other things like that there for him too. Little disappointed. I guess you could say this at the start of the year. If you could have fast forwarded to now, I would have said, man, I want to see Warming Bernabel on there. I would have liked to have seen him have a better go to start off at AA. But man, it's great seeing Yankiel crack that list. Amador has kind of caught public attention here more and more recently. You see a lot more people tweeting about him. I think this is more or less where you hope to see things. And as far as Veen goes, I've never been as high on Veen as a lot of the scouting guys, the prospect guys, Rockies Twitter. I'm definitely not as high on Veen as a lot of people are. That being said, to me, it's just a punt. It's a do-over. I mean, knowing that he's been hurt for as long as he's been hurt, I'm willing just to say, leave Veen in that top 100, and we don't have any idea. I think there's still a giant question mark. The best we have off of Veen is where he was in Spokane before this wrist injury started flaring up. So, no, I think that there's still reason to be optimistic. You just got to keep in mind they're not all going to make it. That's how prospect lists work. The guys, AA is, I think, the toughest level to leap to, the high A to AA. It's not surprising to see guys struggle when they start facing probably the best arms in the minors. AAA tends to be kind of a holding tank for major league depth for arms, especially. So AA is where you're seeing the nasty guys.
Yeah, completely agree. It's the injuries have kind of hurt these guys on the top 100. I was big on Warming going into the season too, And then Julio Carreras getting the 40-man nod from the Rockies. I'm like, all right, maybe he can knock on the door, but he's been battling injuries. You had Hunter Goodman, who I thought maybe might be on that fringe there too, but he's kind of coming back. He's having his regression weeks right now happening up in Hartford too. So you had these guys that were like, all right, they're there, but they just haven't made that bump due to whatever reasons. If Zach Veen turns into an everyday solid 800 OPS player for the Rockies, that's a win. And I think that needs to kind of be kept in perspective. Like, Yordan Alvarez would be fantastic out of Yankel Fernandez, but there's only one Yordan Alvarez, and there's very few people on this threshold, this top peak, and we've been lucky enough to see it with some of these guys like Trevor Story, Nolan Arenado. You can go to Tulowitzki, Matt Holliday there for a few years. Like, we saw these peak guys at their peak, but you still had your Brad Hops, you still had your surrounding cast. Shoot, I'm throwing Clint Barmas up in there. You had these guys. Zach Veen will be better than Clint Barmas, but you have these role players, these guys that are good and will be good, and it's completely okay if they go 10 years of 800 OPS playing right field the entire time. Like if Zach Veen is Chuck Nasty, we're happy, right? Like, but
that being said, let me throw this in there. Bookmark this one, I guess. Amador has the potential to be the superstar, though. And that's what's so exciting about him. I mean, you are talking about right now an elite walk rate, an elite K rate. The power has been coming on. Worst case scenario, he's going to be a very solid guy if he can maintain the walks and the Ks. Forget the power. If he keeps growing into some pop, man, you could be talking about something special. You really could, and that's where I get excited about Amador. I really do. He's another guy I watched play, and it's just he's got a real complete game. Offensively, defensively, he's a hitter. He's got a little bit of pop. He's got some speed. There's a lot of different angles you could see Ariel Amador breaking into superstardom. Now, I'm not saying he will, but I'm saying of those three especially, I think he's the most likely to.
Well, yeah, I'm willing to put myself out there and be called an idiot by some people outside of Rocky circles. I'm so inclined to put him in the same sentence as Wander Franco. Like, I see so many similarities. I think Wander Franco is the older brother, like the slightly, more ahead, maybe a little more advanced in the hit department in some other ways. But I just see a very similar ceiling, and the floor not too far off. When Franco was I think 19 in high A. There's a lot of similarities there, and Wander Franco is now one of the top players in baseball. So I don't think they're unrealistic expectations. Again, AA is really where you can set realistic and accurate expectations, but he's someone we were hoping 25 on the top 100 list. So to see him basically crack that, I mean, he'll probably finish the year at 22, 21 when some guys graduate. And yeah, definitely the biggest superstar potential I think we've seen in the system for,
long time. Yeah, and let me say this on that same note.
Yeah,
on that same note, I've seen a few guys, and maybe even on one of your threads, I've seen a few guys tweet and ask the question, okay, but what do you do with Rogers and Tovar?
Just gonna ask that.
The answer to that for me is I don't care. You don't worry about it. If Amador is what I think he can be, he's number one out of those three. And I know that sounds like high praise, but right now, for where I see his ceiling go, his ceiling is higher than Tovar's or Rogers. You find a place for him, you find a place to get him in the lineup. You move guys around. You do what you got to do. I would hate to see Amador be the guy who gets shocked. That would gut me. I would so much rather see another, if you're going to deal from one of those guys, deal Rogers or even Tovar. Although, again, I'd love to see a middle infield of Tovar and Amador here in 2 years' time. I mean, that would be exciting. And I think that the potential for those two would be high. Anyway, you don't worry about things like that. When you say – related to that is when you see people say, well, they traded Juan Brito because they didn't need that position. They've got Amador, they've got Tovar, they've got Rogers. You don't worry about depth when a guy's in AA. You don't. I mean, you cultivate the best players you've got. You worry about what position they're going to play later. I would much rather deal from a position of strength than feeling like these guys are locked in. You can't assume that the middle infield for Colorado is locked up.
Right. And I think you have to think Amador is that future piece, especially when you get rid of Brito. Like they definitely had to choose, like, or maybe Cleveland chose for him, right? Like, yo, we want Nolan Jones. We've been watching him since he was 17 and blah, blah, blah. But Cleveland wanting Brito or Amador had to have been a thing to think about. Or the Rockies like, yo, we're really high on Amador. He's kind of off limits, so you can maybe take one of these, Julio, Brito, Tovar, any of these. And I'm echoing what you just said. You don't worry about that right now. I mean, Amador's not playing until the end of 2024 in purple. Realistically, he's opening the season in 25 or even in the middle of 2025. You don't worry about that right now. I would love, again, I'm on Amador, Tovar up the middle all day, every day. You figure out what to do with Brendan. Like, that's 2 years down the road, right? Is he moving to the corner? Is he a DH? Like, where do you fit it all in? And you see it with Nolan Jones. He has that versatility where Nolan Jones is finding ways to be in the lineup, whether it's at first, third, right field, whatever. You don't worry about that now. And when the time is to figure it out, and when somebody's knocking and the pressure's on you to move somebody and figure it out, that's when you kind of start turning the wheels to figure out what this looks like. But right now you're hoping Amador is making those adjustments, doing what he needs to, and when he gets to Hartford, he just dominates that the way Tovar did last year, and he's ready for that next step.
Let me throw just an illustration and a comp out there to kind of prove that. You look at the Reds right now, right? I mean, they went overnight from being a terrible team that last year everybody was making fun of. All of a sudden, they have this insane wealth, especially in the middle infield. They've got Jonathan India at second. They've got Elly De La Cruz. They've got Matt McLean, who's playing well. Their best prospect is Noelvi Marte, who they got in the Luis Castillo deal from Seattle. Their middle infield is 4 deep for 2 positions. And I don't think they regret that whatsoever. I mean, all that does is it puts them in a position where they can choose which guy they like the least, and they can package him for something else. That team's going to be strong for a while. I think we're seeing the start of what could really be a Red stranglehold on the Central, because they didn't worry about being redundant at positions in the minor leagues.
Yeah, absolutely. And why not? And you never like to mess with a guy's rhythm. Like, I think there is some legitimacy to like a guy having his defensive home and that translating to him just feeling comfortable in the batter's box. But why not toss Amador into center field and have him get some reps there? So when he's in the big leagues, he can start there, 10, 20, 30 times a year, and you figure out the rest of the stuff. Because you look at a team like the Rays, and I haven't checked this year, but in the past, they're always shifting guys all around, especially with platoons and things like that. So Amador can play maybe some center, some second, short when needed. Rogers hopefully picks up some third. Like, you have to think about it as like, where can these guys play so that we can put them all in the lineup, and you kind of take them out of their norm.
We say this now and we're like, yeah, it's a good problem to have. But then as soon as Amador doesn't start getting playing time in 2025, we're all going to be clamoring on the door and getting mad at Buddy, and because Buddy's still going to be managing in 2025. And we're going to be upset that these young guys aren't getting the playing time. But Amador is that type of guy who's going to get the Tovar leash, right? Like, Tovar has been the starting shortstop since day one. Buddy's been on that. Billy Schmidt and company have been on that. Even Mr. Dick Monfort have been on that. Like, it's been Tovar or bust. Amador has that same trajectory right now. And I think if that continues, I think we're looking at what do we do with B-Rod in 2 or 3 years. Again, all stipulations. We're just people that have a platform that don't know what we're talking about. But it's fun to talk about. We are bantering. That's what this is all about.
Well, look at a guy in it just reminds me, Mookie Betts this year has been playing games at shortstop and second base. He came up as a second baseman. He was converted to a right fielder. We think of Mookie Betts as a right fielder. The guy can play. It doesn't matter where you put him. He could be a shortstop. The Dodgers have realized in a lot of situations they're better off putting Mookie at short. if a guy can hit and if a guy can play, you'll find a place to play him. And I think that's going to be true of. I love the idea of center field. I love it. I mean, I don't think, for the record, I don't think the Rockies have their future center fielder on the roster right now.
All right, heard it here first. Luke's not big on Jordan Beck. All right.
That was a Brenton Doyle comment.
Brenton Doyle, yeah, prospect mind, but yeah, Brenton Doyle, yeah, we can probably pinpoint where and why you don't feel that too comfortable about that. I want to get into some Rocky stuff. Let's lean into it here, and we'll go a little bit long. It's fine. Rocky stuff. So they made a trade. So over under is at 1.5. I think Tyler, maybe did we meet it because we traded to the Phillies cash for Jamari Baylor? Does that count as a Rockies trade, or is that an affiliate, a minor league trade?
I mean, I think that counts because really back in the Bradich era, and I think a lot of people are still kind of stuck in that, he wouldn't even make minor league deals in season. Like it was maybe like 1 or 2 in the offseason, and then in season maybe you get 1 trade, or it'd be crazy to get 2. Bill Schmidt is going to make 5 or 6 trades a year, and like at least. I don't know. I can't even keep track of the moves we've made this year. There's been a few though. Like he's already hit 2 trades, if not 3. I can't think off the top of my head.
I feel like there's one in there too.
Acquisitions have been done,
but definitely those 2: Jamari for cash, or cash for Jamari, and then we lost the Moose for Van Scoyoc, which is just a fun name. You kind of put a thread out there. Slow guy, mid-90s fastball with run and a slider. Rockies profile, like if you're going to trade for a pitcher, this is the profile you're looking for. But kind of funny, like we saw Moose switch dugouts in Colorado. Van Scoyoc did the same thing up in, I think, was it Tri-Cities? I don't think that's right. Yeah, no, Tri-Cities. Right. Tri-Cities, he did the same thing, and he walked right across the field to the Spokane dugout. So you saw it on both sides, that good homer meme. Don't know. I think it's just a death piece. The Rockies starting pitching across the minors has been throttled with injuries. We still haven't seen Nick Bush. We see guys like Joe Rock in case going back on the developmental list. Just it's hurting right now. So we'll see what that plays out to. We won't get into it very much right now just because it's short on time, but maybe we can get into it next week. Saturday night. So there's this whole Rockies discourse. We're kind of talking about it off course. Maybe this is where we end it. It's always fun because we knew the Rockies were bad, right? And we know the Rockies are pushing for 100 losses, and that's just reality. That's the way this team is. Injuries have helped it, granted, and that the kids are part of it, learning process, blah, 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 blah. But we lost I honestly don't even remember the final score. Was it 23-1, 25-1?
25. Yeah,
25. 25-1. Brenton Doyle, you're welcome. That shutout. But we won the series, but we're outscored by 20 runs, which is insane in its own right. But what does this move the needle at all as far as the front office? And we're not getting into sell the team thing. We know that Rockies aren't going to sell the team. You're not an idiot. Tyler, you're not an idiot. I'm not an idiot. We know that Dick Monfort is not going to sell the team. Okay, so we're skipping past that. But does this do anything to Billy and company? Anything to front office and company? Like, you just lost that bad and at home. Is this moving the needle one way or the other?
I think it already did. I think whether that was a result of that or not, I think Moustakas being moved is a move of the needle, right? I mean, the Moustakas deal is a great deal, and with all due respect to Van Scoyoc, I don't, not because of anything he brings to the table. You move Moustakas because you need to start giving more at bats to the younger guys. I think moving Moustakas was a concession that it's time to plan for the future a little more. I think it already did move the needle. Now, is it going to be groundbreaking? No, these things happen. Shout out to Drew Creasman. He had a tweet out there that said something along the lines of just how one outlier game a lot of times gets way too much attention. Yes. I've had people living out here in the middle of nowhere, Oregon, who in the last 2 days have said, "Oh man, what about those Rockies on Saturday?" They could not tell me 3 Rockies. I don't think they could tell me anybody on the team. And they couldn't tell me who won that series. I don't think they're even aware. It's the kind of thing that it's shocking. You see that number 24-0, I think, in the 4th inning, which is horrifyingly amazing. I was hoping for more, honestly.
It was kind of like watching a train wreck, a car accident.
Let's just get it crazy. Let's just get it nasty. But no, I mean, as these things need to be taken in perspective as far as moving the needle in a major way. No, but I think in a minor way, yeah, I think it does. I think it's a good benchmark to say, okay, yeah, it's white flag on 2023 officially time.
I have the same vibes. It's more of the Moose trade than the Giant loss, right? It's like, okay, so they made a trade not near the deadline in the middle of June with everything that's happening. So maybe this is the push that, all right, maybe Billy is kind of recognizing and seeing it. It's just, I don't know. I don't know. It's just Rockies fans. And like you said, I had 3 texts in my group like, oh, what about those Rockies? Did you see that? Yeah, I'm watching. It's terrible, but where were you at all? Like you just know I'm connected with the Rockies and you see a score. Nobody's doing that about Florida versus LSU. Nobody's doing that the next day. Nobody's talking about that. Just some curse on the purple or something. But and then you see all the pundits or the fans. You see sellout crowds at Coors, and this is why we can't get anything nice, blah blah blah, and the whole idea. It's just stupid. I don't know. I'm just saying that. It's just hopefully this Moose trade is something that opens the door. I don't know what you get for a hitting Herald. I don't know what you get for CJ Cron. I think CJ Cron is playing out his contract. And we kind of talked about it. Tyler, do you think Profar is getting shipped out anywhere? How are you feeling about all this?
I mean, first, I just wanted to note, Rockies going into that Angels series had lost 14 of 17. They had a 6-game losing streak. They followed that up with a 3-game winning streak and then proceeded to lose 8 more games in a row. So that's really what triggered the Moose deal. I bet coming into that series, there had been talks. The foundation for that was laid, and they pulled the trigger after that game. And I don't know if it had to do with the score or not. I think it might have happened regardless. And it was everything leading into the series that the Rockies were kind of being bludgeoned for a month now. In terms of Profar, there's a chance. I mean, teams know he's a veteran. He's capable. He's a big league level player, although maybe at this point a well below like average one. So it's tough. I think there might be some truthers, some supporters of his game out there. But overall, it's been so bad. And like we said, coming into this off air, you can't really hide him anymore defensively. And he's not good enough offensively to DH. So someone might bite and want maybe some of the contract paid off in case they want to just DFA if it doesn't work out and you don't get like a prospect return. I think that's a long way of saying it'd be really hard to move him. And it's possible, but he'd have to have a really hot July leading into the deadline, and then maybe someone bites and you get a really unimpressive return.
Yeah, and Aaron, a name you didn't even say that I think is more likely than Profar is Grichuk. I think, Grichuk is on an expiring deal, and I think right now, if I'm an outside team who needs a good, fourth outfield or maybe even a corner option who could play center field in a pinch, Grichuk he's got some appeal.
Yeah, he's definitely on that next list. He's definitely at the top of the trade list. So of all those names, over-unders at 2.5 between now and July 31st.
Ooh.
Rockies trading anybody on the current active roster, throw in the IL, current roster, 40-man roster. How many players are leaving the Colorado Rockies? Over, under 2.5. What's your pick? Why? And what is your actual number if you're going over or under?
I'll take the under.
Yeah, under.
You're going under 2 after everything we just said. Yeah, this is the needle moving. This is it. And no, we're still not doing. We're doing 2 trades at most.
I'm gonna say they're gonna do 2 trades, and that's still a remarkable improvement from the past couple seasons. And I think Grichuk gets moved. I'll go ahead and say that I think he is a guy that is a good candidate for it. And let's just say Brad Hand.
Yeah. I feel like there's a few arms that get moved also. That's why I'm going over. I'm taking the over, and then we'll end with you, Tyler, and we'll call it a day. I'm going the over. I'm thinking 3 or 4. I think like a Brett Suter, Brad Hands, there's a few arms out there that could be moved. I could possibly see a Justin Lawrence being shipped. I think there's some value there for a contending team. Maybe. I know Rockies fans probably don't like to hear that. It just could be a thing. And then there's definitely a bat that moves. I would love it to be Chrome, but he's not getting moved. I think Grichuk is the guy that goes. I would love for Pafar to get somewhere, go somewhere. Hinton Harold, I think, is going to be DFA'd by the end of July. I think I'm going 3. I'm going three trades, and 2 of them being armbar and arms. Going out there.
Yeah, I think Suter and Hand are both really realistic options, and I could see both of them. But the Rockies going from no trades to I just don't see them gutting the roster. And I know it wouldn't really be gutting the roster, but I have a hard time seeing them trade 2 of their most dependable relievers and a bat. I think it'll be a bat and a reliever, Grichuk and probably Hand or Suter, and that's going to be your 2 trades at the deadline.
Okay, so how many extensions are given out in the next month?
Elias Diaz.
Elias Diaz, a Brad Hand extension.
I could see them pulling the trigger, and maybe they're just not going to negotiate in season. But Ezequiel Tovar is someone who, if they're smart, they're going to get ahead on an extension and try to get him below market value.
Yeah, I'm feeling a Wander Franco. We talked about him earlier. Wander Franco deal for Ezequiel Tovar coming in. But the D-backs did with Corbin Carroll too, right? Was it Carroll that got the crazy extension?
I think he just did, yeah.
I think he got like that 10, 12 year before the season started too. Like, why not? Ezekiel's been playing well. He's got it. So, and then just to note, Rockies' attendance is down 10% this season. I mean, if anything moves the needle, it might be attendance, and that's what the fans like to hear. I think that's it. Noah Davis, Nick Mears, and Michael Tolia are officially on the Rockies roster going forward, starting today. They are off tonight, as are the minor league affiliates. I feel like the Isotopes have 2 days off. I don't think the Isotopes are playing tomorrow either. So if you need to get your fix, tune in Tuesday. You'll see it on the MLB TV. As always, go see our guys. I mean, by this time, you can find somebody on a roster that we've talked to. Mine's Fresno. We don't have any guys on Fresno. We need to fix that, Tyler. So you can find somebody, go listen to the banter session and root for them and get to know their story. If you haven't listened to Jared Candy, go hear his story. Man, it's incredible. Throwing 92 as an 18-year-old and only going JUCO in his hometown team to where he is now is just absolutely nuts. So just shameless plug there. Go follow Luke on the Twitter sphere, Oak Tree Status. All the numbers, all the stats, and all the fun wittiness. Tyler, that's what we're going to end it with. Tyler, give us something about college draft. We are less than 2 weeks away, right? I think 16 days, 12 days, somewhere around there.
Roughly.
Tyler, send us off with something draft-esque. I don't know. Give me something.
It'll be a Patrick Lyons seed that was planted, and it's Bryce Eldridge. That's all I'm going to say. 6'7", 223 pounds. Bill Schmidt said he spent a lot of time watching him.
Oh God!
I don't even know if they have a plan for him, but because he pitches and hits. But I just think I'm getting some feelings there.
Okay, you heard it here first. 6'7" wiry guy going to the Rockies at number 9.
Yes, I think so.
Oh, man. All right. End it the best way we can as a Rockies podcast. As always, go Rocks and the minor league affiliates. Woo! Thank you for watching and listening. Please check out our link tree for more content.